Use it during a meeting. Straight up, so we're gonna crank up YouTube.
Yeah.
And then we'll get, maybe we can. Here's going right here.
It's here.
Okay.
You know?
All right, folks, we're live.
Okay. We are gonna start, this is the January 7th, 2026 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design. Present, Sir AFR, Jeff Webb, Calvin Yuji, Bianca Sunner, and myself, Joel Adrian. Present from city staff, we have Eric Schultz. These proceedings are being recorded. We ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. First, receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicants, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, you treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else in favor of the application. Next, we will hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application. And we'll open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, deny, or defer the application. Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design has the authority to do three things. One, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. Three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate, make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members are present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum are present and qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to a particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of the variance would not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district would not be harmed by the granting of the variance. And with that, I will just also mention that Paula Summers has joined the meeting as well. So, everybody present that's planning to be here. Our first item is going to be item A1, which is review of minutes from August 6th. Fortunately, we still do not have all the members present required for that approval, so we're going to have to defer that. You don't need to know that. So A1 will be deferred. We'll go to A2, which are the meeting minutes from November 5th, 2025. And we do have the members present for that. So if there are any revisions required, let us know, or is there a motion for approval? Sandra, Jeff. No. Shelton.
A motion for approval.
All right.
Second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor of that motion?
I in
In
favor.
favor, those opposed, none, so that motion is approved 4-0. Oops. Joel. 0. Item A3 is review of the minutes from December 3rd, 2025 meeting. And we do not have one of the members present that we need for that, so that will be deferred as well. So now we'll get into the real business. We'll start with item B1. Item B1 is 411 Union Street, TMS number 15909031114. Zone MU2, accommodations overlay AVL. Request the first 1-year extension of vested rights for 2 prior approvals that expire on December 31st, 2025, pursuant to section 54-926. The extension is for the removal of trees in connection with the hotel project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to start, for all items, we have not received any written comments. So that's why you don't have any written comment packet with you tonight. For 11 Meeting Street, this is the application. The projects has stalled for various reasons, and they're just protecting their vested right related to the site and the related tree removals necessary to build the hotel project. So this is the application. This is the site, the big blue site with the, and by the way, I have to thank Matt Slagle for the new look. We'll do some additional slides and different fonts, but awesome job. This is that. And we got the blue line around the specific site here, MU2. As you all know, and maybe some of you weren't here in 2019 and 2021, the existing apartment complex was raised and it's basically this vacant lot with a couple interior grand trees and then around the perimeter grand and protected trees presently used for parking. This is the application for the extension of the variance, and this is the verbiage links to that. Again, we had 2 trips to the board. Again, one June 3rd, 2020, and then a follow-up trip on February 3rd, 2021. Both after a deliberation with the board members and of course the applicant, they were ultimately approved. This is the earlier one in June. Basically, you addressed the interior trees at that time. This is existing photo on Meeting Street. These were the trees. And a massive building with at the time with underground parking, and there's some things in works that maybe that is not going to be the case with the new revised plans, but pretty much the same footprint. Again, trees that were adjacent to the facade of the existing apartment buildings and basically one-sided trees because of the lack of light and area to grow. So they kind of lean over Meeting Street. This is the second one in 2021, addressing the perimeter trees. And at the time, Troy Miller was an employee with Bennett Hospitality, and he basically brought the whole project forth. They didn't really have, they had engaged a civil engineer at the time, at that point in time anyway. The building had gone through some preliminary BAR reviews. So we addressed the perimeter trees. There's a little parking courtyard on Meeting Street. So 4 trees would be preserved. And the condition was to save 2 trees in the plan top left. And again, with the layout of the parking underneath the building. Just to make it clear, because it was a little bit confusing, but this is my little exhibit that I dressed up a little bit just to be clear that the trees with X's were previously approved, and then we were addressing 2 additional grand trees and the 10 protected trees. Second round. This was kind of a rendering of the different towers. It's basically at the time, a parking deck underground with a deck and then different towers built above. So staff recommends approval of the extension.
Thank you, Eric, is the applicant present? Right, we need like that. And just state your name.
I'll just say my name. and- Sorry, James Wilson, with Wumble Bond Dickinson here on behalf of the applicant, and really just here to answer any questions, but I think you all are familiar with the extensions that by statute generally are granted, but obviously glad to discuss anything if we can be helpful. And just so you know, the project has been making some progress and we sorted some things out and there's some changes going on, but hopefully we're pushing forward this year. So that's just, thanks very much.
Thank you. Anybody here opposed to this application? We're going to close the application to the public and be open to the board for discussion. A motion for approval to extend the 1 year.
Motion to approve.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Motion. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
In favor. Anybody opposed? That's approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
5-0. All right, so our next item will be item B2, which is Old Folly Road at Battery Island Drive. James Island, the TMS numbers are 334-05-00022, 023, and 055. Is zone PUD. Special exception from section 54-327 to allow the removal of one grand tree. Requested variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of one grand tree. Eric?
I'll be right with you. Matt, doing a little technical update here. Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. All right, taking a trip down to lower James Island to Old Folly Road Beach Road at Battery Island Drive. I don't know how many years it's been. It's probably been 6 or 7, 8 years now that the land went through a rezoning process to become a planned unit development, which incorporates single family residential and also to allow a small inn or hotel. This is the application for a couple of trees that we'll be addressing tonight. Again, this is the PUD. As you can see, it was made up of a couple of properties with a long little flag portion there that's basically wetlands and open space in the overall plan. There was an old road that kind of traversed through it to a residential property. And then it was interesting when Matt and I and the applicant walked the site, it's been disturbed. There's been some activity on this site. There's a couple mounds and some rubble and an old car, what have you. So not quite sure what the previous land use was, but a lot of these trees, I would say, are successional type trees. They seeded in and kind of grew over a lot of disturbed land. This is the layout of grand trees and protected trees. You can see in the bubble in the middle top, we have a double pecan tree, grade C, and then a lot of black cherry on this site, which again makes me think that that's an early successional type species that seeds in early. And anyway, a double black cherry, grade C. So you can see here that the end is on the larger white portion right in the bend at the entry road. And then you have, I believe it's 20 or so single family lots. And the two trees are on the top where you have that open 2 lots, if you will, next to that massive live oak that's kind of on an open space. It's light on the land, a lot of bioswales, and they're doing a really good job keeping non-grand trees as well as the other grand trees, higher quality trees. This is the images and photos from the consulting arborist. And the engineering team, you can see the top photo, tree number 13 is an 1811 pecan, not in very good shape, grade C. And then the black cherry is a double, and it's kind of in bad shape as well. So relevant case history, this is a new slide. We're going to add to this if the project were to return or there was numerous trips to any board or what have you, just to give you some additional information. So the PUD was approved well, the master plan was approved 12/1/2022. So they're moving through preliminary plat and road construction reviews. Staff recommendation and if approved conditions. So again, we have the staff recommendation. We restate the request. One is a special exception, that's black cherry. The pecan is a variance. And staff is prepared to recommend approval with the following conditions. Must plant 28.5 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site in the form of 12 2.5-inch trees. The residual inches in the form of a monetary contribution to the city street tree program. That's if staff agrees that the landscape plan can't afford any additional trees. Must use 4-foot chain link fence as all required tree protection barricades on the site. And then must provide a tree preservation plan for the grand trees to be preserved on the project site as well.
Thank you. Is there anybody present that's opposed to this application? Okay, opposed, is the applicant present?
Yes.
Like to state your name if there's anything you'd like to add.
Good evening, Gary Lassane, Battery Island Community LLC. I have nothing additional to add. I would just like to ask if, the BZA, you guys would approve the request. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's anybody else present that wants to speak? And if there's no one, we'll close the application. Public can be open to the board for discussion. So Eric, you had shown on that previous slide that there was an approval in 2022.
That's for the PUD master plan.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a major subdivision, it had to go through,
Okay.
Did we kill two birds with one stone? I can't remember. Did we get the zoning plus the master plan approved? And that was
Yes.
in 2022.
There were no tree removal requests as a part of that.
Well, actually, the PUD, when we did the PUD, that had to go to our technical review committee, and it was reviewed by all staff members as well as other city staff. And the PUD allowed, I'll show you back here. If you notice here, you can see a mulberry and one other tree should be shown. Maybe it's not shown, but two trees, a mulberry, which is a category 4 tree, and one other tree were approved via the PUD. Then they started to, lay out the lots and study product size and the setbacks and all. And you can see that these two trees are in the front portion of lot, we don't have a lot number there, but the first lot to the right of that large live oak. So it kind of creates a little issue with access to the lots and then the building envelope.
Are they showing up on this plan, Eric?
No, they don't. I'll kind of, so envision.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, these
Lower left, and there's actually two in the.
these two trees here are what we're addressing
They're like,
tonight.
they're almost the middle of that
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Or middle of the frontage.
That's right. Cool. And he's preserving, you can see the gray trees are non-grand, some of those smaller circles. So they think they can preserve that one to the lot to the right in front and put the building behind, but driveway's kind of staggering on either side of the common property line. And again, they're C grade and not great.
How would you find?
Any questions for the applicant, or is there a motion to be made? Since there's no opposition, staff is in favor.
I'll make a motion for approval with staff recommendations.
Kelvin seconds. Okay, so we have a motion for approval with staff conditions by Jeff, second by Kelvin. All in favor of that motion?
I
Aye.
All in favor? Anybody opposed? It's approved 5-0. Thank you for your time. We will go on to item B3. And item B3 is 8-8. We have Jeff will have to recuse himself from this. It's 883 Michael Drive on James Island, TMS number 45409000001. Rezoned SR1. Requested variance for section 54-327 to allow the removal of 2 grand trees and to reduce the 15 protected trees per acre requirement.
So we're heading a little further north on James Island, more central to 883 Michael Drive. This is the application submitted by ABC Engineering. That's why Jeff had to step out. So we have a elementary school that was constructed probably 10, maybe 15 years ago, after the original school that was on the front portion of the property was, that was demolished after the new school was constructed. However, Charleston County School District, growing area, needs to expand the campus. So you can see where maybe the original school's footprint was in that open area, built the school behind it. As you know, the state has very specific rules as to student drop off versus bus drop off. So you see the 2 long driveway and employee parking surrounded by single family residential. And there is a required 25-foot buffer, and we got permission to allow a path within that buffer, which is highly used by the neighboring residents as basically a very wonderful walk amongst the trees. This is the variance justification. I might add, I will address the 2 red trees in the existing pond. I'll go back to the image. So the pond at the time, and this goes back a number of years, where the city didn't have as strict stormwater regulations, was sized, but it's not large enough. It overtops its banks. There is a canal along the common plan north property line, a drainage easement. And you can see where that pond basically goes out in that corner there. That's its outfall, but it overtops during certain storm events. So they have to increase the size of that to address that issue. Upon Matt and our inspection, we learned that what was thought to be a laurel oak is actually a water oak, and that the water oak is the right side tree amongst a couple other protected trees, and then the laurel oak is one that was preserved on a little peninsula when that pond was constructed a number of years ago. So the application is actually advertised as 2 variances, but because the special exception is less restrictive, we can not re-advertise and move forward. The request, here's the new or the existing circulation in pond. And here's the proposed. So we have a significant wing being built to the school and a couple small additions. And then to address an issue that exists where cars, the parent drop off back up on Michael Drive, they're extending that loop. I don't know how long it is, a mile almost. Not quite a mile, but adding a lot of stacking capability. And then the new bus drop off will be that cul-de-sac type looking with a wonderful plaza and path into the school there. Then additional under the new stormwater regs, they'll have some underground detention and then an open pond out front. So the boxy looking one, I believe, is underground. So they have some play space above, and then the pond, a new pond. And then, of course, to address the overtopping pond, they have to increase the capacity of that one. So protected trees, based on the acreage, and then you can subtract out easements. They're required to maintain 181 protected trees. Those are 8 inches in diameter or greater, including pine, sweet gum, etc. And due to the circulation and playground space and just some other modifications, they're dropping below that number to 168. So that's a difference of 13 trees, because if they have over that number, they can remove down to what's required, 188, but they're going a little bit beyond that. So everything in purple stays, everything in green stays, grand trees are gray. The yellows are the protected trees that come out. This is a preliminary mitigation plan where they think they can reforest the school. And I'm one that will always encourage that the outdoors should also be an outdoor classroom, and maybe start what could be an arboretum by planting native canopy trees back on site. So we'll see how that proceeds through TRC. Here's your the 30-inch laurel oak, mislabeled as a water oak, is the one on that little peninsula in the pond, the 25-inch water oak. And then you can see your calculations for the 15 trees per acre requirement. No relevant case history here. So again, the request is modified to allow a variance to remove 1 grand tree, special exception to remove 1 grand tree, and a variance to reduce the 15 trees per acre requirement. Staff is prepared to recommend approval with the following conditions. Plant 100 caliber inches, that's the required inches for the grands, and then 5 inches per protected tree removed below the requirement. In the form of 40 2.5-inch trees, of course, we'll request that they're native. The residual inches, again, if necessary, can be a contribution to the city street tree program, but there's plenty of space. We want a reforested site. Use 4-foot chain link fence as tree protection barricades, and then provide a tree protection preservation plan for those grand trees to be preserved. And I might just state that the granddaddy of the live oaks on site, well, going the wrong direction. One will be in that central playground area between the existing school and the new wing, kind of right center here. It's a beautiful, and it's actually competing with a sweet gum. So we feel that we'll support the removal of the sweet gum so that tree can flush out. And then, of course, in the parking lot from the original layout design, you got some really beautiful live oaks there. And then, of course, all the perimeter trees are very important in that required 25-foot landscape buffer. So I think they're doing a fabulous job working with the conditions and the requirements of the state, the district, and the city.
Thank you, Eric. Is there anybody present that's opposed to this application? The applicant present.
Yes, Chris Cook. Good evening, I'm Chris Cook with ADC Engineering. I just briefly, mostly to be here to answer questions, I briefly wanted to elaborate a little bit more on what Eric had mentioned, just to kind of give you some background of why we are making the improvements that we are. The stacking distance that was mentioned, right now the existing school has about 1,200 feet of stacking that's on site. And we're getting close to 4,000 feet with this improvement. It is much needed. There's a lot of congestion in that area during those drop off and pickup times. Is a way to maybe illustrate that. South Carolina DOT just recently updated their recommendations for schools. What used to be for this school, they would have recommended 1,500 feet. The manual now says they recommend 3,000 to 4,000 feet. So this is a much needed improvement that the district wanted to make to make the improvements that were necessary. Related to the stormwater, real quick, for the 2 grand trees that are in that back upper right left corner, when the project was designed, that pond was designed originally. That was back when the storm requirements were much lower. But when we do this project, we're having to analyze everything based on the new city requirements for stormwater. This area, a portion of it is in a special protection area. So all of that's added quite a bit. So the overtopping of the pond, I want to emphasize, is based on the new modeling criteria, based on the larger storm events and that sort of thing that we're required to look at now. You know, generally, that's just an overview of what, you know, what's causing a lot of the improvements that we're making on site beyond the addition to the school itself. And again, I'm just available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody else present that want to speak in favor of the application? Close the application to the board or to the public, to be open to the board for a discussion and.
Well, they're constrained by the stormwater requirements, obviously, here, site and circulation. Mhm.
Seems like the plan is much.
Eric, you said the 100 inches was from the grand trees and then.
That's correct. So you have the water oaks, 50% of the DVH inches removed, the 30-inch laurel is 75%, and then 13 protected trees below the 181 requirement, I think equals 65 inches. So a total of 100. And then Matt suggested that they do 40 2.5-inch trees to spread across the campus, and again, we'll look for that in the technical review.
This includes the sweet gum you guys are suggesting.
The sweet gum was included. You see that that was yellow on the plan right there. And that's a playground, and we were crunching on a pretty nice layer of sweet gum balls. And to have kids under that, that's not fair.
Rite of passage.
I mean, I see them as becoming weapons, those little spiky balls.
My son never went there, they're okay.
Okay.
No weapons. All right, there,
Make a motion for approval with stock conditions.
is there a second?
Second.
Calvin, so there's a motion for approval, staff conditions from Deandra, seconded by Kelvin. All in favor of that motion?
I am in favor.
I in favor. Any opposed? None. Is that motion approved 4-0? Thank you for your time. You're gonna recuse.
Yeah.
You right.
I will.
Okay.
I'll
Your
send it.
colleague back in? Yes. Oh, well, okay.
I think he can hear.
Yeah, we can find him.
Oh, okay.
Speaker out.
There he is. Okay.
All right, so our next item is item B4. That is 1796 Carolina Bay Drive. It's in West Ashley, TMS number 307-0000005. A zone PUD. Requested variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 6 grand trees. Eric.
Making a trip to West Ashley into Carolina Bay. A massive subdivision out there. We've got a centralized parcel. This is the application for the request. There's a lot of history here. The PUD, again, plan unit development required a commercial component. And this area here was kind of slated to be that. The city ended up taking a portion of that and building the firehouse on the corner there of Memorial Drive and Carolina Bay. So we've had this residual piece sitting for a while, and I think it's a wonderful use that doesn't necessarily, you know, rule into our recommendation, but the proposal is to provide a daycare facility in this, I don't know how many housetop roofs are in this subdivision, but quite a few. So plan unit development, totally wooded site. Again, the plan unit development allowed a multifamily component, so you have an apartment complex next door, firehouse on the corner, and then a lot of single family detached and some actually townhouses on the other side of the wetland there. This site has a little bit of topography, so it falls from the firehouse down to Park Lawn Drive. And then there's a number of grand trees peppered across the site. This is the letter addressing the variance. So again, stormwater requirements, a necessary stormwater facility Again, I believe it's a state rule that governs daycare facilities that you have to, and nowadays for security reasons, you park your car and you walk your child into the facility and check the child in. So you have the necessary parking for that peak time. And then of course, two segregated play lawn or areas behind the structure. The point of ingress egress opposes a public street, as you can see, making a four-way intersection, if you will, and then the other one opposes a public street as well at the 90-degree turn there. So Matt and I and was Eliana present on that one? No, Eliana wasn't. But anyway, we traversed the forest with the Seaman Whiteside consultant. They have a wonderful program called Site Marker. So we evaluated each tree. They take photos right on site. They pin that tree, and these are the results of the findings on the grades. So we had three trees that were deemed by staff as just F grade, so they were that far gone or storm damaged or infested with insects. Then you have three C grade trees, and the one in the playground, you know, we sat there and we talked about it at length, but it has a really strange deformity in the upper crown that looks like it could fail. And again, with kids underneath it, we suggest that they look at it closely, and then they ultimately are asking for it to be removed. A B grade tree, unfortunately, with the shifts in the grades and the parking, maintaining the 15 trees per acre requirement, we have a B grade tree basically on the facade of the building. And then a grade, again, related to grades and parking, two D grade trees, the orange trees. So you can see, if you want to pick at any one particular tree, a lot of tulip poplar in this section of the city, very interesting. So they're very, their crowns are very, very high in the canopy, and then multi-stem, and then some have cavities present. Some have holes that you can literally look through. Red oak and tulip poplar. Again. So the daycare facility is permitted in the zoning, which in the PUD it says anything that is zoned GP under our table of allowed uses is permitted, but it does have some conditions, and that it speaks to being appropriately screened from residential properties. So we ask that they take these pictures to show the proximity of the play area to the apartment buildings. So it's not a said depth of a buffer, an appropriate screening. So they'll have some work to do with obviously the security fence, and then also beefing up some shrubbery in that area to be appropriately screened. Of course, lighting and all that can't be, it can't impact adjacent property and that sort of thing. So, so that's why these photos were introduced. No prior relevant case history. So staff recommendation, and if approved, conditions, again, the variance to allow the removal of 6 grand trees. I think all of them were category 2, the red oak and the tulip poplars. So staff recommends approval based on our findings. And again, I failed to kind of mention the effort to maintain the higher quality B grade trees, 1 in the playground and 3 around the pond and 1 on the perimeter with a break in the parking lot, and then an A grade tree on the corner. So staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 119 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site in the form of 48. And I think we could probably achieve that with planting some natives in the understory. And then residual inches if we feel that it can't all be satisfied as a contribution to the city street tree program. Let's use 4-foot chain link fence as tree protection barricade. Again, we want every tree with children and people being introduced to this site to have be treated via a tree preservation plan for the grand trees on site.
Thank you, Eric. Is there anybody present that is opposed to this application?
I'm opposed to that.
Okay,
I live on the sliver of land. It's a very,
well, not yet. Not yet.
Oh.
We will hear from the
Oh,
applicant. Anyone in favor? Is the applicant present?
Hello, thank you all for your time tonight. My name is Aaron Schmidt, with Seaman Whiteside Engineering. Or Seaman Whiteside, Betsy, who made the made the submittal, she actually lives in Arkansas, so I'm here representing her. With that though, I just wanted to quickly say, we appreciate the time that we were able to spend with city staff in order to walk this site extensively to get a great feedback on the trees that we are asking to remove, but also get great feedback on the trees that we could do as good of work as we can to work around in order to preserve on this site. So the only other thing that I wanted to add was Eric did a great job about talking about the playgrounds in the back. There's also a small kind of play area, if you will, slash kind of breakout area along the front. And it, based off of conversations with the owner, that play area that is along the front has to stay there due to access reasons from the room inside to the area itself. And so it adds yet another kind of pinch point to the overall footprint of the building, just so you guys have the full picture. But happy to answer any questions or to discuss anything further. So thank you all.
Everybody else present that is in favor that like to be heard? All right, hear from those that are opposed. Yes, you come up, please. Thank you. State your name and address.
Jennifer Van Buren, 1500 Park Lawn Drive, Charleston. So I live in the Element Apartments there, so that is my home. I do back up to this sliver of land there. And there are so many animals and birds and things living all in that area. And I can actually see from the apartment to the entrance of the apartment. So I just cannot even imagine how all of this could be built there without just demolishing everything, which I think is very selfish because the traffic there is already crazy. There's so many homes crammed into this area. I just don't know how we could bring more traffic and playgrounds and make that an entire parking lot that we're now going to be looking at with kids there. So I was mainly here to see what they were planning to do because I've seen this for a couple of years, and knowing what it is now, I still oppose it because it's going to still demolish that beautiful buffer that we have. It's really a bunch of trails there. People walk through there like all the time, and it just seems like it's going to bring a lot more traffic and safety concerns at that corner because I cross that road every day, and to have a parking lot, chain link fences, all of this stuff there, it does not seem like the spot in a residential area for that type of building or anything. So that's my.
Ma'am, can I ask you just to be more specific?
Which one?
Which is this, do you live in this apartment building? Then there's a garage, or this one closer
I
to the
live
firehouse?
in building 500 at the entrance, the first one on the left at the
Okay, so
entrance.
this is
of
park
Carolina
line,
Way.
so this one here, okay.
Park Lawn
Very
Drive.
good. I
Right
just
there, my balcony, I can see the trees that have the things on there, the ribbons, and it's been very disturbing for some time. So I took time off work just to at least give my opinion on why I don't agree with it. So, all right, that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else present that's opposed and wants to be heard? Then, well, you have an opportunity to present from what you heard. If that.
Sure. Yes, sir. Well, first off, just want to say Thank you for coming out to talk.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. And we'd love to take in the public's comments in order to make a better product for the community. Our understanding is, through the PUD, that the site itself was set for development at some point in time anyways, based off of just the design, the master plan design of the community, if you will. With that, I brought up a great point about the buffer, and then Mr. Eric brought up a great point about the buffer as well. We want to make sure that we're good stewards with our adjacent property owners and do our best to screen and buffer that piece of property as best as we can, especially knowing that this is an educational site that will have kids associated with it. So those were kind of the two biggest takeaways that I took from it. Obviously doing our best to preserve the canopy that we can, the trees that we can, with the request of the trees that you see in front of you. So thank you guys again for your time. Really appreciate it.
I'll just stay there a second.
Yes, sir.
The buffer requirement, Eric, what is required as a minimum buffer on that shared property?
So again, it's I believe it's a conditional use in GB. It's a PUD, but this was the commercial component within the PUD says that whatever uses are allowed in GB, general business. So it's a conditional use, and it speaks to when it came through sketch plan Wednesday, I brought up the fact that, wait a minute, we have incompatible zoning. It may be a 25-foot landscape buffer, but then during the course of the conversation, we went to this specific language, and I don't have that, and maybe somebody could quickly pull that up. But it speaks to the play area has to be screened by an efficient buffer or
The play area, but I think,
right.
correct me if I'm wrong, but is her apartment here?
Yeah, so I think based on just our GIS, and that's why I wanted to kind of point that out, not that, but you can see her building is where the little crooked in the, yeah,
This one here.
yes,
So it's looking across the entry drive.
Yep.
And then the pond.
Yep.
And so none of this is
All those-
slated to be removed, or is there grading that's gonna have to take place in this area that removes these trees in order to accomplish what you're doing?
So there may be some minor grading involved as far as implementing that drive in there and then connecting it out to Memorial. Now, there will be probably some small infrastructure work in that area, because the last thing that we want to do is also make the feet of those trees wet, where right now it's able to flow appropriately. So we'll probably be throwing in some infrastructure there in order to catch water to push towards the pond. But my understanding is that as we move further with this design, we do not want to mess with that area as much as we can.
So for those smaller or the protected trees, you're meeting the 15 trees per acre. You're not seeking a variance for that, right?
We are not seeking a variance, no, sir.
So a good portion of those, I mean,
In order to meet the variance or to meet the requirement, yes, sir, they're gonna have to remain anyways.
So where the playground area is, that's where trees 8 and 9 are. That fence, is that roughly about, looks like for that scale, maybe it's about 15 feet off that property line? Do you know? I know you said you
Yes,
didn't
sir.
compare it.
I think it's 20,
20?
but it's somewhere right there. Yes, sir, between 15 and 20 feet.
so here I can, we had that. So these are the photos of that area in which the playground would be in the vicinity. The pictures on the, you can see the point, the number 1 point. And then, so. Are you able to bring that up?
That would be the pretty
Were you
fun.
discussing the size of
Yeah,
the
right,
property
right there.
Yeah.
Not by the entry,
For the ladder.
but I feel like the entry needs to put a requirement that there was significant planting put in
And
to hide the drive.
well, but if you were gonna save trees that you're waiting to
Yes.
grade, I mean, it seems like you could save.
Is the design, and I think Eric, you mentioned this in your presentation, but is the reason the building is not facing the street because of the safety issue with walking the kids to the front door?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that's,
The site design and kind of layout itself is really, it's determined less by us flow wise and more of the requirements that the state then puts on, and also the requirements of the owner themselves and what they've seen in all of their previously done projects as well. And one other quick thing to note, as far as I know that this doesn't get back to planting, but in order to help also bolster that buffer, in addition to us keeping the buffer, supplementing the buffer, but also a perimeter fence / barrier would also be put on that boundary as well to create more of that separation.
And dear.
So here's the language. Daycare centers within the LB or GB zoning. And again, I believe the PUD calls the commercial district to be GB. So the proposed facility must meet the definition of the daycare center, overnight daycare facility if applicable. Proof of application registration with the Department of Social Services. Any play area, if located within 50 feet of a residential structure or zone, is appropriately buffered. So it doesn't call out a width. It just says appropriately buffered. And that's where we were corrected during the sketch plan. Because I was thinking it was incompatible zoning, like a commercial use.
Yes, sir.
Against the, so it just has to be appropriately buffered. There exists at least one parking space per employee, including the operator, plus one space for every 10 daycare users. So I'm sure they crunch those numbers on the number of parking spaces.
Yes, sir.
Plans for ingress, egress, loading, unloading, and location of parking play areas are approved for safety with the appropriate city department. Again, they've done an excellent job. You know, they're kind of hemmed in with their connection points with the opposing public right-of-ways. And then the facility is located adjacent to residences. Again, outdoor lighting is oriented away from the structure. So I don't even know if they're planning lighting in the play area or, you know, on the building itself, but that will have to be addressed.
Eric, can you go back to that? Thank you.
have Red Apple Development closed on this piece of property, or is this part of the due diligence?
This is a part of their due diligence. So,
Site plan?
And-
Okay.
and question for Eric, sorry if I'm speaking out of turn. Again, it says appropriate buffer.
Right.
We would then work together with staff during the TRC process in order to determine the appropriate.
That's right. The acting zoning administrator was in the sketch plan Wednesday session. And you would present a plan, and I guess the city would make the determination if we feel it's appropriately buffered. So I know you have to have a security fence, whether that's opaque or transparent. And then, of course, you're saving a few trees, of course, on the common property line. And I know we got into the conversation about the depth and the square footage of the play area and whether it could maybe sneak to plan right of the building. But again, I think you all came back with the security, the windows and the means of ingress egress, that it pretty much had to be at the back. But anyway.
Yes, sir.
I'll ask a question. Is the depth of that play, is there a minimum square footage that has to be provided a play area for children that are present?
There is the square footage. It does play into that as far as how many students that they are allowed capacity wise within. But in addition to it, it also comes down to an operations point of view, as far as Red Apple has their own requirements as well as far as what they will allow from a playground scenario.
All right. So Eric, if this was zoned just like regular general business and then it had that residential zoning and adjacent to it, what would be the required buffer?
I think we determined it'd be a 25-foot landscape buffer.
And then they would have a specific number of plantings that would need.
That's correct. It would have a specific number of canopy trees, understory trees, and buffer shrubs.
So if we were to say that fence is 25 feet off of that shared property line for that area, then we could say we could give them some actual direction and say, hey, we would like to see a 25-foot landscape buffer per city standard planted in this area. And then I think it would be maintained. Great thought.
I don't think that's 25 feet.
No, so I, looking at this, I thought 15. Looking at that scale, was here, he said maybe 20. I'm like, if 5 feet came out, that probably doesn't, keep little Johnny from going down a slide.
Personally, I'm not as worried. I think city staff, I think, has the ability to make that buffer right there.
Okay.
But I was more worried further down where she is and maybe where that road kind of pinches closer, that might be something that we could talk about. You know, because right now they could, there's no buffers required at this property line, right?
That's right.
I mean,
There's a buffer required. It's subjective.
Right.
but it's only around the playground, Kelvin, like usually if these were like, you'd have a 25-foot buffer by use between the two properties.
Right, so
If you were not, but you're not, it's not a bud. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not a,
if it were like an ice cream shop or something like that, we'd have a 25-foot buffer. But because the daycare is permitted in GB as a conditional use, those rules override.
Could we establish or set a buffer dimension we want off of that line? If we're to say there should be at least 20 feet that runs up to the play area, then it turns into the discretionary city. And that would give them some protection of, hey, I'm not gonna just be looking at a road. Although at least it'd just be a small road with the pond and all behind it. There could be buffer up close and then where all the kids are far to the right. Or is that not feasible? I guess it's not, because then you would say 25 feet, 25 feet. And that has to get reconfigured.
Well, as I think of the language, appropriate buffer could relate to a width. Then the planning is within the buffer. And combination of the fence, so I don't know.
So leave it up to the city.
Hmm?
Leave it up to the city to hash all that out, because it says appropriate buffer. Instead of us trying to establish a width.
what do you think about the grading that's gonna happen in this zone? I mean,
I think it would be very,
is that water coming onto the site,
it's falling to the left, from right to left.
right to left?
Yes, sir. So I mean, we'll be picking up most of it where we can right around the road.
You're on doing pick right road, but can you save what's there on that property line?
On the property line?
Yeah. I'm looking at this.
I believe so. I can't give you a 100% confirmation just right here today, but I believe so. Yes, sir. I mean, we do our best. I mean, as you know, Mr. Jeff, but we do our best to stay off of those property lines anyways and not grade up right to it.
I tell you, so I think that I'm finally getting there. I don't really have an issue with the removal of the trees. I think the use of this of that lot makes perfect sense. And maybe instead of with it was written that there's an appropriate buffer behind the play area, we say there's an appropriate buffer along that entire shared property line, and the city determines those plantings.
We're happy to work with staff in that regard. Yes, sir.
Unrelated, but with that access easement, is that still active on that right-hand side?
So the right now that access easement goes to a dead end where there's then already built multifamily on the other side.
In effect, I mean,
Yes, sir. The owner is actually working through just his title and everything like that in order to see.
get that abandoned.
Yes, sir. But at this point in time, we want to be mindful to that access easement in the event that it cannot be abandoned. We still want to be mindful of it, which is why the layout is the way that it is. Or I guess another portion to why.
Would the layout change if the access easement, it gets abandoned?
No, ma'am, it probably wouldn't change much. As we slide that building further to the right, it also has to slide further to the south, planned south, just due to the pinch on the front of the building while still maintaining that access, which then produces a little bit more of a problem with number 8, that B tree that we're trying to keep.
And I was looking at that tree right in the middle of it.
And the idea of keeping number 8 is really due to providing shade in that area, some type of shade in that area for the students. Getting rid of number 9, as Mr. Eric was saying, is really due to precautionary more than anything, as the one branch that comes out looks like it could have a cavity in it.
And why is the tree that's labeled A being removed?
So green is A, and in the top left corner, that's the only A tree on the site, so that one is.
Adjacent to the right of number 5?
Those are.
I think
dead.
it was missed in the original numbering system. Where we couldn't find a number for it when we were in the field.
But the 3 reds are F grade.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
I think I'm good with the trees, but I think I kind of like the idea of
Maintaining that buffer
buffer.
Agree.
all the way across that rear property line. Appropriate. Determined by staff.
I think that's the language.
Thank you. So actually, I guess I need to close the application to the public. and be open to the
Sorry,
public for discussion.
Appreciate y'all's time. Really do.
But I agree. I think that, since a neighbor came out and was concerned, establishing that buffer, as I look at it, if those trees were remaining, I don't know, there's a huge adjustment to the view and all, but just to ensure that.
Maybe add some understory. It looked like it was kind of open around this tree.
Just putting that language, I think, of the buffer, extending that entire shared property line, appropriate buffer.
Is there any reason why you wouldn't think it should need to be extended all the way and up into the adjacent to the road? I mean, it's that areas.
Well, I think that property line, I think they're kind of locked in with opposing, aligning with that opposing leg at the intersection.
Right, but I'm talking about this kind of triangle between 5.
Here we go.
Nope,
Oh, I
and
thought
then
you were saying, Paul, you're saying all the way to the road.
I'm saying this whole area. Just like
Oh, okay,
conservation.
I'm sorry. I thought.
I think that's where after they do their minimal grading, can they reestablish somewhere. Replacement trees in
Right.
that area.
Okay.
But,
I'll try to make a motion. I'll make a motion, with staff recommendations, with the addition, that an appropriate buffer will be provided around, it will be provided by the playground by ordinance, but also along the shared property line. That's southeast property line between the apartment complex. By maintaining natural vegetation as much as possible and supplementing it.
a second is Jeff's motion.
Second.
Second by Kelvin. So we got a motion for approval with staff conditions and the appropriate buffer required to be extended. All in favor of that motion?
I
In
In
favor.
favor, any opposed? It's approved.
Thank you all for your time.
All right, that'll bring us to our last item, I think. E5 is 2307 Iowa Avenue, West Ashley. MS numbers are 31006000132 and 018. Pending zoning of GB. Request a special exception from section 54.320 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree. Request a variance from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree. Request a variance from section 54.343 to provide no landscape islands, 1 island per 5 parking spaces required. Eric?
Okay, making a trip down that highway to, to Savage Road and Etowah. This is the application by the applicant. So our blue boxed area has received first reading on annexation, and it also has received first reading on zoning. In concert with that, across the street is the CarMax facility, and that has also received annexation and zoning, so it's coming into the city, a wonderful thing for the city. CarMax is growing, and there's an issue that Charleston, as well as I believe Charleston County Sheriff's Office has been dealing with, and that's the offloading of vehicles in Savannah Highway. They don't necessarily have that specific issue, but it is very tight for their trucks to get onto the main facility and turn around and offload and then get back out on the Savage. So they're going to be making some modifications to that facility, and the spaces, the inventory spaces that they lose, they want to make up on this particular piece of property, which is 2 lots to be combined into one. So the city planning division has been working with the applicant and the appropriate zoning and what have you. So Savage Road is a class 5 road requiring a 15-foot landscape buffer. So the operations of this satellite, well, this is the addressing the variances. This is the exhibit showing how they're losing some space, staging area, and how they got to loop some large tractor trailers around and what have you. And this is the proposed layout for inventory. The operations of this lot will be employees. The trucks will offload, maneuver the vehicles around on the sales site, and then the extras will come over to this site. So obviously they want to make maximum use of the area. So they're not planning to line stripe it. Hence, it's just basically an inventory lot. It will be controlled access. It will be secured. And then, of course, it has to meet stormwater requirements. So the entrance will be off of Etowah. So this is the tree inventory. So we have quite a few grand trees on it. Staff has been out on site and visited most trees. There's a kind of a encampment on site, and it was occupied, so we didn't get too close to it that particular day. But see, these are the tree numbers and the grades and their justification for A, B, C, and others. This is the list. So sweet gum, obviously it's not a grand tree. You got red oak, tallow we view as an invasive. Japanese privet we view as invasive. So we got elm, water oaks, red oaks. So this is zeroing in on the trees. We have a non-grand to the right of the entrance drive. We have one red oak, 29.5 in the parking area. We have the invasive privet, and then one on the edge of the parking area, which is the elm, I believe, with a special exception. You can see the tree protection in the works. They demonstrated that they'll be able to meet the 15 trees per acre requirement. That's why that was removed. We do have some concerns about the grading for the stormwater. And that will be in the area where you see that little area outlined with the blue plan north of the parking area. So we'll work through that. Again, your trees. Second reading, December 16th, relevant case history. So again, staff recommendation if approved conditions, if approved conditions, special exception for the 1 grand tree, variance for the 1 grand tree, and the omission of the interior landscape islands. Staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 30 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site in the form of 12 2.5-inch trees with residual as a contribution to the city street tree program. 4-foot chain link fences, tree protection barricades, and then a tree preservation plan for the grand trees to be preserved on the site.
Right. Thank you. Is there anybody present that's opposed? It's the applicant present. Okay, you'd like to-
Thanks. Hi, I'm Brian Hellman, 105 Broad Street. And with me tonight is Bradley Escobar from CarMax, Cassidy Clements from Centerpoint, and Mike Russell, who's been working with Eric as our arborist on the site. As Mr. Schultz did a wonderful job of explaining, CarMax, whose property has been in the county, has looked at first annexing into the city and secondly expanding onto these two properties. They abut, I don't know if we had an aerial that we saw, and it was in the, there we go. We abut that large gas station, and CarMax has been pretty busy here at this site. CarMax is unique in that they also buy a lot of vehicles. And so they have some unique needs, which is one, they show cars and sell cars in a showroom, but they also buy cars and have to store them before they ship them off that go to auction. And what's happening is the site is getting more and more compressed, and this site will allow them to take cars that aren't in actual sales inventory and move them across to this area, which will free up the site to work better. As Mr. Schultz mentioned, you can see 2 car carriers in the sort of top left corner of their existing lot. So it'll allow those to work a little better. The car carriers will remain on site on the main lot, but they'll be able to, yeah, and in fact, you could see them on that aerial. They're actually loading and unloading cars in the picture, the coincidental Google picture where they caught some trucks. So we added in the application why we think we meet the extraordinary and exceptional requirements for the variance test and special exceptions, Mr. Schultz mentioned. Because this is a car storage lot, I would liken it a lot more to when you have been to a large airport and you sort of drop off cars and they just have lines of cars without parking lots. So it's not really a parking lot for cars that this will be. It's more of a staging area. So we're all here to answer any questions you have, from the trees to the site plan to variance requirements.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak? We'll close the application to the public. We open the board for questions, discussion. I don't know that I have one of those 2 trees we're looking at.
I might add that they are adhering to the buffer requirement adjacent to the residential property. The curb line will be 25 feet off.
Kind of hard to put landscape island trees in if you don't have parking lot. Random trees. So, are there any questions of the applicant or staff?
What were the 2 grades?
The elm is. Let's see here, go back. Like D.
D.
Yep.
And the red oak's a B.
And the 29.5 red oak, yeah. D.
All right, you go, which was red?
The one, yep, variance.
That table is not inclusive of seeing those grand trees, the larger grands up at the top. Is that was in that table?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a really good looking red oak. I think it's tree number 220. That's kind of, maybe it's not that one. It's on the ditch line, and then there's a one a little further off the property line.
Any- No, I thought the residential adjacent properties have the proper buffer.
Why does specifically, why does the B need to be removed? Because the red oak in the bottom corner, it's the B grade tree. Is there, was a specific reason?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the site, could you go back to the site plan? The site is 1.67 acres. We are utilizing 0.68 acres based on landscape buffer, stormwater design, and wetland protection. So that tree right in that bottom corner really is right in the middle of where operations need to be had. And preserving that tree would limit the space in this lot and make it essentially unusable to operational standards. So we would have to have an appropriate buffer around the water line, which would prevent cars being parked in a pretty significant block in that bottom corner. If cars could not be parked in that block, it would take away the amount of spaces that CarMax would usually utilize, and they have a specific number for these lots based on sales and operational standards. So if we were to create that preservation buffer in that bottom right corner, we would not be meeting those operational numbers that we would need to have in this lot.
If you were able to encroach in that buffer, would you be able to meet the operational numbers
If we were able to encroach in the buffer around the water line,
around the tree?
I don't believe we would. I think, yeah, could we go back to?
Just to be clear, the red oak is left, the elm is on the edge of the little bump out.
Yes, it's this one.
That one's the red
Yeah.
oak, yeah.
Yeah.
The buffer you're talking about isn't necessarily just our tree protection zone, but CarMax has, if I've got this tree, I want my cars so far away, so I'm
Exactly.
not cleaning them every other day and watching things drop out.
Exactly. And I don't have the exact dimension of what that buffer would be, but it's quite significant.
You're looking at something that's, and then you rendering this to 1 or 2 spaces
Exactly.
versus accomplishing what they were.
Right. If that buffer was created, the sliver between the property line and the buffer, where we would want to park cars, it would be so minimal, it would essentially exclude that entire right-hand corner, as you just said.
Cause y'all looking at it more from a drip line
Exactly. Drip,
Yeah,
thank you.
what
That's,
than the tree protection area that the city normally requires.
and that's why we have her.
If you could just state your name for the record since you spoke.
Mike Russell, Natural Corrections.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Like I said, this lot is very condensed in what CarMax is able to utilize it for. We are hitting that operational number exactly. For this proposed use, we have about an acre of stormwater, landscape buffering, wetland protection, et cetera. And so that was really what was discussed in that hardship letter, presenting those conditions on this.
So then all the inches required will be on the, like you could add to that buffer there.
Around the perimeter, stormwater allows some on the slope of the stormwater pond and what have you. There is an aerial line, we discovered when we were in the field. Dominion Energy had been in there and behind the gas station fence, there's a cleared, you can see the pole just sticking up. It comes out to Savage Road. So they had just recently trimmed and underbrushed all that. And that was the easy access to the homeless encampment. But so I don't think we can plant necessarily there underneath that distribution line.
I was thinking where
Yeah.
the resident.
On that, the southern property line with the residential, there's a drainage easement plus a buffer.
Yeah, so they can account for they can reduce the buffer width, which I think they've accounted for here. 1/4 of the buffer width or the width of the easement, whichever smaller.
I think what's important about this diagram is looking at that upper right. All that remains. There's nothing happening there. And then on the left side, that buffers remains and it's established.
Well, a little bit of ponding, a little bit of So
No,
they haven't quite
yeah.
worked out all their calculations, but a little bit of maybe a small bioswale here, a pipe underneath, and then this will become a little bit of a,
Yeah, like the
but that's where
those
the
trees around
yeah,
that perimeter
tree,
still
yeah, Bill,
maintained.
that's what
and
we were
it-
saying. We'll, try and utilize that.
The uses, I think is what I'm getting from,
Yeah, there's gonna
Yeah.
be trees around the perimeter, no doubt.
so.
Can you go back to the slide showing the existing CarMax lot? I just had it was a curious question more than anything else. Yeah, oh,
That one or the truck?
The other one,
The truck?
black and white, yeah. Okay, that's wetland. I was just curious about why there wasn't an expansion on the back.
Yeah,
of that.
that's a pretty
But yeah, that's a
that's the,
significant lot.
the Tiger Swamp,
Yeah.
canal system.
Yeah.
That comes from the Citadel Mall across through, Costco and
Yeah.
outfalls to Mutual Drive.
Any other questions of the applicant for staff? Thank you. Discussion. I don't see any issues. I think that plan makes sense and it should be reviewed.
I'll make a motion for approval with staff recommendations.
All right, motion for approval by Jeff. Is there a second to Jeff's motion?
Second.
By Deandra. All right, so we'll go to vote. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
I in favor.
Aye in favor.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so that motion is approved 3-2.
3-2, Kelvin, could you clarify where you
Opposed.
opposed?
Okay, Calvin will call. It's approved 3-2. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, that concludes the meeting.
Thank you. Yes, meeting is adjourned.
One day we're gonna approve those August minutes.
We'll be on.
What are you doing? It's been a while.
We like part next to each other, didn't even recognize you. I was just like.
It's just been that long. It's good to see you.